We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Welcome to the stage, Mr. Michael Wainwright. Formerly known as M-Dubs.
I'm very honored to be here
Yeah.
as the first guest on your podcast.
We're happy to have you.
It felt right having you as the first guest. Being that you kind of helped me make my whole gym, help me build everything, paint the walls, put the ceilings up, put the lights in, carry all the equipment. We've just been through a journey with the whole thing, and we've talked about a podcast before. So just felt right. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, it's the gym has been a crazy journey. I remember the white wall days.
Yeah.
Just like
The old-
a couple pieces of equipment.
The old squat rack.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
No, I mean, the memories pop up all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to see how quickly time moves.
Mhm.
But it feels like we're the same people we were in high school,
Yeah.
which feels like so not that long ago, but it is.
Yeah.
How many years? Like 6 years?
Well, out of high school, we've been out of high school for,
I don't even know.
yeah, at
2016, so-
yeah, 6 years.
Yeah,
How long have you guys
7
known
years.
each other?
I guess since middle school, seventh grade?
Seventh grade, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are at seventh grade, but
Me either.
somewhere around 11 or 12.
That's one of the topics I actually wanted to bring up, but we'll bring it up now. And it's like how friendships change throughout time. And like, it's crazy, and it's not a negative thing or a bad or a positive thing, but you could make it either way depending how you think about it. But overall, just it's guaranteed to happen. And it's like, based off what you're doing with your life is who you're going to be surrounded by and like who you're going to hang out with. And in high school, the world feels so small, and you think like those people are going to be there forever or whatever. So it's just funny how friendships change, like ours has changed a lot. Because we were friends early in seventh grade, and then, we weren't as close throughout certain years, and then we became really close after high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey in itself. Our friendship has, like you said, evolved over the now 10 plus years that we've known each other. And yeah, when you're in high school or when you're younger in general, you definitely have that short-term mindset where it's hard to think like 5-10 years down the road. You don't even know what you're doing next week as an 11-year-old. So seeing how things kind of just like work themselves out and the natural ebbs and flows of life kind of just land you
Where you're
either
supposed to be.
closer or farther apart from these people that you thought would be kind of in your life forever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And just the fact again that it's like it's bound to happen, and it's bound to happen for the rest of our lives, right?
Yeah.
Just like how your career goes, like, and time feels so much shorter the older you get, and the more goals you have. So it's like you really have to prioritize, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, you never know when your last day is going to be. Like, tomorrow's not a given. So, understanding that and acknowledging that you really have no idea how much time you have left kind of helps you prioritize how you shape and who you allow in your life.
Totally. Super true. Proximity is power, right, Kenny?
Yeah, and it all has to do with mindset. As you grow up, depending on what your mindset is, that's what determines who's really close to you. Because you're always going to have, like, I can say that my top 2 best friends I've ever had, I don't talk to for a month or 2, but they're still my best friends. We're just not as close as we used to be, in the sense of being around each other, talking all the time, because we all took different routes, different paths. And, it's when you're in a mindset to grow, you have to kind of like surround yourself with people that want to grow or want to better themselves. If it's in the business sense or personally or, spiritually, it doesn't matter, but just like try to grow yourself every day.
Yeah, if the people you've been around for a while, like are no longer doing things that interest you, or, you know, yeah, if they don't interest you, you're not going to continue to like put time and effort into doing the thing that you ultimately don't want to do. So that friendship is going to suffer. It's not to say that you don't care for that person. It's just that your interests and their interests no longer align.
It's just the time you spend together, really.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the friendship ends unless you choose it to, right? You still have that friendship. You're just not always communicating, essentially. So, like, you can always pick up in the future or whatever, you know, life throws at you. But it's an interesting topic.
And when they're really good friends, I have one of my best friends ever. We go 3 months without talking. But when we talk, it's like we never stop talking, you know? And, you know, he's in a different country also. So, you know, we don't talk that much just because each one of us is doing something different. But, you know, when we do decide to call each other or whatever, it's like, it just picks up, you know, where we left from. It's not awkward or weird.
Those are some of the best friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing, relatively new thing, that we have this idea that we have to always be in contact with the ones that we call our friends. It's like, it's probably not that long ago that most people didn't talk to their friends for like weeks or like months at a time.
Right. The way technology has changed. Yeah.
It's like, imagine if you had to get on your horse to go to your friend's house. Like, you're not going every day. You're not talking to them every hour.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
And like letters, you know, they took time to get there.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I forgot who said this, but they were like, it was funny how they said, you know, what if a girl meets another guy, you know, and it takes you 3 months to get to her house in a horse or something like that, you know, and by the time you get there, she's like, oh yeah, I met somebody else, you know, but now it's like just a text messaging, you know.
Yeah. There's no way for that letter to get lost in the mail.
Exactly.
That's funny. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself now. And,
Who are you?
Who am I? That's a great question. I don't know. I guess I'm just a guy from
a wanderer.
Yeah, I'm just a person that enjoys to see what's possible. I don't know. It was just a few years ago, probably 2019-ish, that I really started getting into, I don't even know.
Endurance.
Yeah. I guess you could say, like, this ultra marathon type endurance stuff started circulating in my head. And the first thing that actually I committed to and did somewhere, you know, along the lines of endurance was the 4x4x48. That was with you. But yeah, I'm just like a guy that likes to push the limits. And
just for people that don't know, people like me, what is a 4x4x48?
Right. We were going to get into that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to start right at the beginning though.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember you hit me up one day, right? I was already personal training and we were obviously friends. And you said, I want to start running. And I was like, I ran cross country in high school, right? And it was fun, but I wasn't really a runner. Like, I didn't like it that much. Although obviously I have a love for running. So we started running together, and then you brought up the 4x4x48, and I was like, what? This sounds crazy. So to explain, I'll let you explain it.
So, and just to give a little background on me, prior to this, the most running I had done was like a few sprints
that's what I mean.
Baseball. For like high school. I was not a runner. I played baseball. We did like the least amount of running possible. So this was completely new. And the 4x4x48 is you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So essentially for 2 days, you run, breaks down to 24 miles each day. Tyler and I,
our first time,
thought
like it's close to a marathon, so we might as well make it 2 marathons, because 24 miles, bump it up to 26 miles, and it's a marathon.
Yeah, so that broken down into like all of the 12 runs that you do, or 16 runs, however many runs you do. it was like 4.4 miles
each time.
each.
I think it was
each
12. 12
each
runs.
time. Yeah, I think you're right.
It was 8 a.m.,
Yeah.
12 noon, and then 4,
Yeah.
and then 8,
And that just cycled.
and then it kept going.
Yeah.
So,
So we did 4.4 miles for every 4 hours, or at every 4 hours for 2 days. 2 days.
You guys
straight.
woke up like in the middle of the night and did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was pretty we fought demons as we said it, but we overcome some pain to do that. And it was pretty intense.
That was still the best running that I've ever done in my life. Like, looking back at the splits, I haven't hit splits like that.
Yeah, we were cruising, like we ran
sub
miles.
9 minute pace for like all of them.
Yeah, until the end, we did start walking a little bit towards the end.
We had like a
But
few miles.
it's funny because in between each run, like throughout the beginning, it hurt more to walk than it did to do the run. Because once you got in the flow of things and your body was moving and the blood was pumping, you felt totally fine, which is crazy because, again, I guess I never mentioned it, but the point of this episode, kind of the topic that I had in mind, was how we always have talked about how the body can adapt to anything. So that's just an example. Like, our body was more comfortable running at that point than it was not. Or I guess once it started running, it got more comfortable than it was when it was just walking around, being still.
I don't know about you, but I was not well trained going to this. I think I might have run for like 2 or 3 weeks leading into this, and I was doing like 3 or 4. Was running like 3 or 4 days a week, and I was running 4 miles in the morning and 4 miles in the evening. So I was running doubles, getting 8 miles in a day, and I would say 3 weeks is the absolute max that I was running. So maybe at the most 12 runs, well, 24 because of the 2. But yeah, completely undertrained. Just said, let's see what happens. Didn't really give ourselves an option. We're just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And we're just going to go for it.
Yeah, we prepared as much as we could, food-wise, nutrition-wise. And that's what I mean is we were running for a few weeks, and then you brought this up to me. And I was like, I had no personal interest in, like, I would never do that. I would never see that and say, okay, let me do that. But since, like, the way you presented it and, like, it just, I was like, what? I was like, I have to do it with you. And I regret nothing. Like, it was amazing. But I just think, like, personally, and that's what I want to get into, is you personally, like, you have an interest in this endurance sport, clearly, with your ultra marathon as well, 73 miles. And so, like, me personally, my own values and interests, like, that's not kind of one of them. I think it's fun to do and test my body in certain ways, but not necessarily in that way. So I kind of wanted to ask you that question, like, what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can find the answer. I don't know.
I don't know. I think I just needed something to, like, for the lack of a better word, take up time. I needed something for my mind to focus on. And I was always curious, like, why people enjoyed running and, like, how I always heard of this runner's high. And I was like, I wonder what that is. I want to, like, people talk about, like, the most euphoric feeling that they've ever experienced, and it was while they're running. So, and then, you know, when you're talking about ultras, it's like it's a party in the mountains. You get to go explore these beautiful places, and you get to do it all with your feet. And then if you're really lucky, you stay up for long enough, you get to start to see fun things in the nighttime as your mind starts to play tricks on you.
Yeah, fight those demons. That's crazy. Motion is lotion, though.
Yeah. Moving the body is one of the best things that I've found for a clear mind.
Yeah, mental health, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's a massive difference in how I feel when I'm being consistent with my workouts versus when I'm not. My brain fog goes away. All my negative mental chatter is much more calm when I'm working out. And when I have like a built workout routine. When I'm running, when I'm lifting, both of those things are extremely important to keeping my mind sane.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that. That can be anything for different people, right? It doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be weightlifting, right? It doesn't have to be yoga, but some form of movement is just makes a world of a difference for your whole entire body, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, it definitely does not have to be running ultra marathons in the mountains. It doesn't have to be lifting crazy heavy weights in the gym every day. All it has to be is moving, and like put some effort into it. Like, don't just go through the motions. Like, do the motions with intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I was talking to my one friend about stereotypes, and I was trying to think of ones about me. And I don't know if it is one, but I feel like a lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, he's that fitness guy or whatever. But mental health and like the mental side of the game and movement and a workout regimen and all that is what got me into it. Like, I was into the nutrition first, and I just think it's so important. And that's kind of why we started the podcast too. You know what I mean? So it's just huge what a little bit of movement can do, let alone structured with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, movement and exercise is the most beneficial thing you can do for your brain. I mean, there's many studies for different mental diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, where they integrate exercise and movement, and they see like huge improvements.
Yeah, and your body's ability to maintain its muscle tissue as you get older is directly related. Like, your brain's a muscle, so if your muscle starts degenerating, your brain's going to go in Alzheimer's, dementia, and all those things. So if you can just, what's the quote Austin said yesterday, right? You don't stop moving when you get old. You get old when you stop moving.
Yeah.
So being able to maintain muscle tissue. So doing strength training for older individuals and the elderly is so important for them to stay sharp and live, longer, healthier, happier lives.
Remember the guy from UPW, like 76 years old?
Yeah.
Remember the guy at the end? And he looked like he was like maybe 50.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like 76. I mean, ripped.
Yeah, there's so many examples out there. It's just those limiting beliefs that a lot of people grow up with their whole lives, where like, I'm in pain, so I'm not able to do those things.
Let me rest.
Yeah, let me rest, or all this. And it's like, movement is the cure. Movement is medicine, But anyway, bringing up Austin, do you want to touch on the PCT?
Yeah.
Recent.
Yeah, that was very recent. Coming up about I was just talking to somebody the other day about a year ago. We were just getting our permits and everything like that for the trip. So it's all coming back to me. How this whole.
How long have you been
began.
home since it?
I got home on July 7th. So
What's
been
today's
home
date?
for like
Just for the
5
listeners?
months.
December 7th.
So it's exactly 5 months.
Wow.
Yes.
5 months to the date. Wow. Okay. So the PCT, for those that don't know, is a 2,650 mile foot trail from
the Pacific Crest Trail, right?
Yes, Pacific Crest Trail. And it goes from the border of California and Mexico. It starts in like Campo, California, and it goes through California, Oregon, and Washington until it ends at the Washington and Canada border, somewhere in northern Washington. And I hiked from the southern terminus until Lake Tahoe, which was mile like 1,100. And Austin, he continued on, and he hiked the rest of it, as much as he could. There was a bunch of wildfires in Oregon that caused a bunch of issues, and then unfortunately there was a wildfire at the border when they were there, so they were unable to
finish line
to see the finish line, which is terrible. But I'm certain they'll get back out there. But the time that I was out there was insane.
How many days?
I was out there for about 100 days, and the views from the high desert mountains of Southern California versus the Sierra Mountains, the Eastern Sierras in like the middle of California, and then coming out of that and entering like the Lake Tahoe area. It was just, the difference was insane. Each had its own beauty. Each was beautiful in its own way. And each definitely has its own story. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have a separate episode with Austin to go over like big detail about the journey and all those stories.
Yeah, there's just so much to talk about when it comes to the PCT. We had such a good time. I personally have never done anything like that. Going into that, like another example of just kind of throwing myself right into the fire. I had only camped like a couple overnighters here before going out to hike for thousands of miles on the West Coast in terrain that I've never experienced before. But yeah, we got out there, and it was definitely an adjustment period, like learning what to bring to eat and learning how to just like pack your pack. It was all so new. But as we spent each day just like learning and figuring things out and going through our routine and refining our routine and just like learning what we didn't need to carry and what like items that were absolutely
survival,
crucial.
like,
yeah, it was just like you're walking around with all of your things on your pack. Like eventually you're going to want something lighter. So you're going to want to start figuring out, what do I actually need to survive out here and to just get me from point A to point B. And that was one of the coolest things, was you just really start to like pick away things out of your life that just aren't necessary. And then like what you're left with are just a few items that are truly like required to live.
The essentials.
And the essentials, let me tell you, are bare bones. Like you don't need much.
Your body can adapt to anything.
Yeah, you don't need much.
Makes you grateful for all the things you do have, though.
Oh yeah, like there's definitely pros to having stuff, but there's also pros to not having things. Like the amount of time that I spent picking out what I was going to wear that day was zero. Every day was the exact same thing. It was like the same pair of shorts, the same shirt. I had a couple pairs of socks that I would rotate through, but for like 3 or 4 days at a time, it was the same crusty socks just going on. And just everything was the same. I'd break down my tent, had my breakfast. Everything was the same. Most of the time.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was great. I am a creature of habit. I like routine.
I think human beings in general are creatures of habit, no?
I would
Obviously, some more than others in this day and age. But would you agree that the species is like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, especially in modern times where it's basically a cycle, especially people that
Circadian rhythm.
Yeah, that like biologically, definitely. I mean, 100%. And then when it comes being part of a society, also, it's like the same thing. You wake up, you eat breakfast, you do this, and then for most people, Monday through Friday, it's one pattern, and then on the weekends, it's another pattern. So I think,
you know what I think about a lot is if the pattern was the same for all 7 days, or just every day at that point, how different we would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny how people say they hate Mondays, because if we didn't have Mondays, then Tuesday would be Monday, and then they would hate Tuesday, So it's like,
yeah.
But it's interesting what you said about every day being the same, which for some people it is. For me, every day is the same. I don't have any division on my week.
Yeah, obviously days vary, like plans and whatnot, but yeah, same. I'm trying to build my life the same way, where it's not a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, for example.
I mean, I didn't choose the game. The game chose me. I just work every day. You know what I mean? So when some people say, "Oh, the weekend is here," it's like Saturday is one of my busiest days. You know?
I totally agree. And you know what I love about it is that you could make Monday Saturday.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
like just the days feel however you want them to feel at that point.
Yeah.
Like whatever you just schedule that day is how it's gonna feel. So
Exactly. Yeah.
and I love it. I mean, it's definitely something you have to learn though.
That is something that when we were on the PCT, we learned very quickly. Like it was the tracking time was very strange. Like it was very quick that you lost your track of like the day of the week. Not so much time of day because I had to watch, but like a lot of
In the sun.
and the sun. But understanding what like time of the week it was didn't really matter. And it doesn't matter.
It wasn't relevant in that situation.
Yeah, and that was great because like you could walk into a town and hammer 6 beers on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And like who cares?
Right.
It's your Friday. It's my Friday.
Would you notice like walking into a town and it being like more vibey or less vibey based on, and then you would check the day of the week and be like,
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah, you would walk in, and you would like open the door to a bar at like 7 o'clock, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be packed. There's gonna be so many people in here.
It's a Tuesday.
And it's a Tuesday or Wednesday. You're like, oh, we're good. We're gonna get served in 15 minutes.
right.
So yeah, like there was definitely that assumption or those memories, I guess, just making you assume how things are gonna be when you're doing the action in which you
And based on your body's state or physiology in any moment, you're right, your body tells time differently. I'm not qualified to give like in-depth detail or examples of this, but I always hear Andrew Huberman saying like when you're sitting like doing work versus you're out hanging out with your friends, your brain perceives time differently, either faster or slower.
Yeah.
So it just makes me think again, doing certain activities and you build them into your life daily that make your brain react either way almost makes your life feel faster or slower. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
100%. And I think what happens is when you're living in a society, your days are broken into these blocks of time, you know? So let's say if you go to the gym in the morning and you're there from 8 to 10, you're like, oh, I have 2 more hours until lunch or something like that. And then in the afternoon, I'm doing this. So your perception of time is different because you're assigning all these different items to blocks of your day. When you're doing a trail, your only objective is to keep walking and survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your perception of time is so different because you're not limited at all. Your only limit is sunlight because you can only walk when the sun is out. And then once it's nighttime, you go, you pack you put together your tent and you go to sleep. So definitely. And I think the reason why, I've never done anything like that, but I'm assuming the reason why it makes you feel so good is because as humans, that's what we always did. We weren't worried about getting to work on time or doing this. We were worried about finding food, water, and staying alive, So I guess when you...
Would you say it's less worries overall at this day and age for your life, your experience? Less worries overall or just different worries? Or
No, it's definitely less worries. Yeah. The stress of like modern life, just day-to-day life, isn't a lot. Like it's not very intense. It's like a very annoying
dull,
white noise,
lingering thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's like a hum. And when you're out on trail, the first few weeks, sure, you're going to have a lot of those worries, but as you start to figure stuff out, get more comfortable, the worries are way less.
Start to adapt.
Yeah, exactly. You learn, you just get better. And then your worries become like very few. I'm trying to think of your worries, I guess, become more about dying and less about silly day-to-day things. And then
So it's more intense worries, but much less like frequency or
Yeah.
overall
'cause
worry.
the amount of times that I was worried about dying was very few.
Right. And it's also just, I like how you mentioned it's that lingering, dull, just constant worry when you're home in like today's society. Because I feel that way. And it sucks, you know?
It does suck.
Like, how do you get rid of that? And I think it's possible to get rid of it with practice and building mindset and all that stuff. But like, I still have a lot of work to do. But that's why I surround myself with this, you know what I mean? And you know, everything else I do. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess as you get older, and not just older, as you build the knowledge of what are the important things, everything starts narrowing, you know? So, for example, let's say when you were in high school, important things were what you were wearing, how cool you were, who you were hanging out with. Where now it's like, what are you learning from the people around you? How are you bettering yourself on a day-to-day basis? And I feel like once you start narrowing what are the important things, that noise like gets a little more silent because you're not worried about things that are not relevant to your existence, you know?
survival too. Like
Yeah, like-
financially, you obviously have worries with that. That's one that everyone has because we need money to survive in the world. Just as a thought.
I mean, I think if you break it down, you asked a really good question. Like, how do you achieve that state of like mental clarity?
It's our timer.
Yeah, I like I was staring at the clock,
Yeah.
the hourglass. But yeah, I think, where was I going with that? I think you can break that down and like achieve that through a few things. And I think the first thing is like shared suffering. I think there's a special thing that comes out of doing hard things with other people.
Very, like it's a connection that
Yeah.
you guys make.
Absolutely. It's a bond that only can be formed through doing very difficult things
Whatever you did.
with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be walking a long trail or running an ultra marathon.
Well-
It could be a hard workout each day.
Right. And
Or,
like
or like being in the military together.
Exactly. I was gonna say-
Yeah, exactly.
pledging a fraternity too.
Yeah.
Like those guys are so tight together.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that because they do things that
It's the shared suffering. And like when you're with those people that you're suffering with, you feel so good. Those are your people.
Because you
That's-
feel
that's your
protected, you feel safe.
That's your tribe. So I think that's the first thing. And then I think after that, all you really need is some food, some water, and the active pursuit of something that you're genuinely passionate about.
something bigger than you.
Yeah. And whatever it is, whether it's going to make you $1 billion or if it's not going to make you that much money at all. I think doing those things and being okay with, like if what you're passionate about is farming just on a small scale or whatever, you have to be realistic with yourself. Like maybe that's not going to bring you or make you $1 billion. But if that's what you're passionate about and you're okay with like making,
You find a way to do it.
yeah, and like you're okay with making what is a realistic income for that, then that's perfect. You should do that.
Well,
And
there's the need of security, which would be survival to a sense. So once that's taken care of, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Then
but also like people can live on a lot less. So like what defines security is different for each individual person, but that number is almost always a lot lower than people imagine.
Right.
It's just like what you're
I
willing to
guess
give up.
Playing devil's advocate in this world, though, right? Like, we could live with a lot less money, but the fact that the other people have more than you makes it harder to live, you know? So we could live with less overall, sure, but when you are the only one with less, it's just harder to exist, essentially, or harder to survive. I don't know which way to put it. Maybe harder to be happy or successful.
I mean, I think a lot of it is all based on what has been constructed in society and the sense of either the way you're brought up or the things that really satisfy you. But I think going through an experience like the one you did, it makes you realize what you really need and what are the essentials, because, you know, you'd be fine with just regular black coffee, but some people like getting a frappuccino, you know? So it's like it's the same thing as coffee, you know what I mean? But you're paying a lot more money. You feel like you need that. But at the end of the day, even plain water is enough, you know what I mean? So it's like we need all these different things, but I think it's just the fact that we know we can get them, you know? Because
And our exposure to them that we've already
exactly.
had. So now you know it's real. If we've never eaten sugar in our life, you wouldn't crave it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Well, one more thing I want to get in before we close too is, you know, touching on the body's ability to adapt to anything, like a workout routine. Like, so you're doing deadlift December right now.
Yeah.
When you did squat October, I guess it's a better example because it just passed and you did pretty much the whole thing, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's squatting 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because, like, personally, I have no desire to try to push my body through that. I know I could handle it because I know I can adapt to anything, but I just don't care to. But that's just me. So, but your body's ability to adapt to a squat, because some people, right, if they've never really done it that much and they squat one day, they might be so crazy sore the next day. But if you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, then your body adapts to it.
Yeah, and it, like, soreness is tough because I've never
Like our run, our 4x4x48, we were sore,
yes.
but we just ran anyway.
Yes, that pushing through soreness majority of the time is a good thing. But when it comes to like repetitive soreness, I'm not a believer in you should be training to soreness every single time that you train. I think if your body is like really sore, then you're probably more likely under recovered than overtrained. And that could be lack of sleep, lack of nutrition,
right,
a whole host of things. But I've never been a person that gets sore. The first 2 days of deadlift December, my lower half was definitely more sore than I had been in a while. And, but that's it. Like after a couple days, the rest is like, it just feels heavy. And I think that that's like the sweet spot. You don't want to like cripple yourself because then you're worthless the next day, but training at an effort and like a pace that you're able to sustain day after day, that's when you like truly unlock and start to understand like, okay, this is what my body's capable of. But that's only something that can be found through like lots of repetition and really pushing your understanding of where your previous perspective or understanding of how you thought you were supposed to or could train these body parts. Mm-hmm. And
that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it was crazy. I never thought that I was going to squat 5 days a week for a month. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, it's deep. But you do believe overtraining's possible or no?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I'll give you my point of view with it.
Go ahead, fire away. Let me ponder on the overtraining question.
Okay. I think that overtraining is definitely possible based on your ability, that individual's ability. But what defines it? So in my opinion, what defines it would be if you're injuring yourself to the point where you can't train for any amount of time, then that's overtraining. But like you said, it could be lack of recovery. But I think it's a combination. Definitely lack of recovery, because I feel like there's always something you can do to better it. Or, right, like you don't get a 10 out of 10 night of sleep every night. It's bound to not happen, for example. Or, in today's world, anything can go wrong, especially in today's world. But I've personally feel like I've injured my shoulder from like overtraining it and just doing too much on it too many days in a row. And that's just my personal experience.
I feel like overtraining has a lot of different variables that it can be broken down into. And
right.
That's where it kind of gets confusing. Because to me, like, under recovering would be the reason for like an injury, or it wouldn't be the overtraining, because the overtraining is relative to that time. Because there's times where, say you're running 30 miles a week, if you're jumping right into 30 miles a week, that might be overtraining. But if you are slowly building up to that 30 miles, that might be like where you could be slowly building up and be running 50 miles and not be overtraining. Mm-hmm. So like overtraining is very relative to the time period and the person's current physical abilities. That being said, like you said with your shoulder injury, you said that you think it was because you were using it too much. Could it be that you weren't like strengthening other areas enough, or weren't mobile enough?
Yeah, it totally could be.
You weren't,
but
rested.
And also, not being mobile enough soreness can cause tighter muscles, which can cause you to not be as mobile. So obviously a proper warm-up is important. But it's also about not overdoing, I think, just one motion. So, but then this is another great example because of Squattober and Deadlift December. It's running. So yeah, so for me, it was like I was doing handstands every day. Like I would do my normal bodybuilding workout where I did a push or a pull or legs, and then I would do handstands every day. And that's when I injured myself, because I was still doing the normal stuff, and then I added on top of it the same exact movement that puts you under load. But, obviously I've done my research and talked to many people and PTs and stuff, and this conversation has also helped me realize too that it could just be a lack of or an overcompensation of my body, like certain muscles got too weak and other muscles got too strong, and I was imbalanced essentially. Mm-hmm. That could be, something too. But overall, I still think there could be that overlap of like you did a little too much or you didn't recover enough.
Yeah, or that goes back to the intensity of the training. If you said you started throwing it on top of like all your normal stuff, well, maybe you're doing a little bit too much. Like you're riding this line between like the maximum amount of effort that you can put in for the least amount of recovery time versus the least amount of effort that you could put in for the maximum amount of recovery time. And that line between the two is where you're trying to be. And if you're just a little too far to one side, you're gonna get injured. You're gonna be overdoing what your body's capable of, recovering and recouping in the time frame that you're giving it.
And the biggest thing for it all is structure, proper routine, mm-hmm. or just consistency.
It's everything. It's the commitment to doing the task each day. It's the commitment to recovering in the ways that you are required.
And building it into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I like how you mentioned about running is that you have to, or you've said this to me when we used to run a lot, is that you have to commit the time, not the effort. Because running, for example, takes time. If you want to run 10 miles, that's a big chunk of your day, right? So, and now translating that into other things in life, not just running, but you have to structure time for the ways you want your life to look, not what you want to do, just block it out and commit and be consistent. And yeah, it's just such a snowball effect of things.
Yeah, if you can label time, that's the way that I've found most effective to stay on task. If your hours and your time have intention, they have a purpose, then you're more likely to stick to them. And like you said, that's the same with fitness or anything in life. It's just label your time, dedicate your time to something, and then stick to that.
Love it. So to wrap up, we've touched on a few obviously, but what's your biggest tip if you were asked the question on mental health? Like how to maximize your own mental health and live happier than you were the day before?
Ooh.
If you could just narrow it down.
Yeah.
And I have a question too. So I'm just shocked by that PCT. How did achieving that 120 days you said?
I was out there for 100. It was like
100 days. How did that help you improve your mental health after being done with that and looking back?
Coming back to regular life kind of thing?
Let me start with that one. I thought that trail had such there was such overlap with real life, like where you're climbing and you're suffering and it hurts and you're like, I just want to get to the top. I just want to get to the top. And you get to the top and you're like, oh, this is great. And you look around and you soak it all in, and then you look in front of you, and in front of you is a descent, a long valley, and another climb and another peak. And I was like, hey, that is just what life is like you're gonna have these tough times where like you feel like you're never gonna get to the top. You feel like you're always gonna be suffering, and then you come around a corner and there's the top, and you stay up there for a little bit and you take it all in, and then deep down you're like, all right, gotta go to the next thing. And that has definitely been like the main thing that I've brought back to today, is like understanding that each day and each week and each month are going to have these different peaks and valleys, and understanding that has allowed me to stay a lot more even, because as great as these highs feel, the lows feel just as low. So trying to stay out of the real high highs and the real low lows has been really helpful for me. It's just like
staying level.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go too high, don't go too low.
I feel like you answered both questions with that.
Yeah, I feel like that one definitely touched on yours as well.
But if you have anything else you want to add?
Nah, I guess just like move a lot, do hard things,
Challenges.
And eat and drink water. Like, don't overcomplicate it. If you want to overcomplicate it, great, but eat your protein, get your carbs, eat your veggies, and then drink water and move your body.
Wonderful. Awesome. It was lovely having you on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It was
I
great.
appreciate it.
We'll have you on again soon with Austin as well.
I didn't even talk this time that much in this because I was so interested in everything you were saying.
That's good. That's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
I feel
good.
like
A lot more guests to come.
yeah, we'll get another one going.
Oh, yeah.
Of a little round table.
For sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And we're gonna get some episodes going at my house too. Just chilling on the couch.
Yeah. Some late night stuff.
Yeah, we can get into some fun topics.
Yeah. We'll get into
Sure.
Some
Lot-
deep thinking.
Bring your tinfoil hat.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, keep living life, keep smiling, and we'll see you next time.
New Life Podcast.